got Hans, Dan, Stephen, Jerry Lee, and Phil. We have a full council body, and I'm now calling the meeting to order. So, 5:06. Okay. Don't have much to say here except thank you for everybody's suggestions that we have this emergency phone call. It's important that all of us, the council, the town manager, and myself, that we're all on the same page, and we are all working to protect this town and the residents to the best of our ability. So Andrea has done just an incredible effort of getting information and making calls. I've been talking with different people as well, and I'm sure you all have. So we're just going to jump into this now. Is there any change that you want to make to the agenda?
I do not.
You all have to let us know. Just say no or yes.
No.
Council member?
No change. No.
No.
Okay. No.
No change.
Okay, good. All right. So we'll keep the agenda as it is. That's unanimous. All right. We're going to jump into it now for new business. I think I'd like to, and this is a discussion, and all residents who are listening in, this is going to be a discussion mostly just with council. I'm going to ask Andrea to kind of lead us through it. She and I will share information, and at each bullet, I forgot to add one more bullet. Council members, I would like to add one more bullet. It's all under new business. Okay. All right. Sorry. Yeah. I'll have Andrea start this. I may chime in, and of course, council members, by all means, please chime in. So here we go. Let's go.
Sure. So first thing, just wanted to remind everyone on the phone where to find good information. So on our website, under the notices, under the news items, the first item on the information, there's a number of resources if folks are interested in checking those out. Just personally, what I've been finding particularly useful is Governor Hogan's Twitter and the Montgomery County Facebook. That's where the most up-to-date information tends to be posted. If you're not comfortable with social media, the state coronavirus page and the county's coronavirus page all have the same information. It just sometimes pops up maybe an hour later or something. There's great information there, though. On our website, for the coronavirus news item, we're updating that regularly. We're shooting for daily. So we're putting updates up there as often as we can, but we are a small staff, and we are relying on the state and county for a lot of information right now. They have the experts. They have emergency managers. They have public health experts. So what I'm doing a lot of is repeating information that I'm hearing from them. So if you want to hear the information directly, check those sources.
Andrea?
Yes.
Andrea, this is Hans.
Okay.
Are you basically posting the same information that Hogan's Twitter feed has and that the county already has on their site on this issue, or is it new information or different information that you anticipate?
No, I'm trying to pull some of the key things that I think are relevant to the town, but I just don't have the capacity to post everything that comes through, either the state or the county.
No,
so I'm really trying to encourage, really trying to encourage folks to check those sources directly. They have entire teams of communications people also, so they've got some really good ways to get the information out, good resources, videos of press conferences, that sort of thing.
And that's why I asked the question, because essentially the information is out there.
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
I can kind of add on that too, though, and it's, we're hearing a lot of interest by some residents, to have some kind of a advisory group, and that is something I think as a council, mayor, and town manager, we we may want to be thinking seriously about. And just to get to the point on that you and Andrea just talked about, with all the information out there, sometimes it's, information overload. So not everybody is wanting to read all the way down to the end of a page or have the ability to even get to all the links, much less maybe even understand some of it. So there is I think a valid need to see if we can set up a volunteer group of experts who are in town that know the medical and biomedical field. And I've already reached out to one. Actually, he reached out to me, and his name is Bob Friedman. Some of you may know him. He used to work at NIH. You all may know I used to work at NIH, and he's now over in the Uniformed Services University Health Commission or something, whatever it's called. Anyway, I'm sorry, I don't have the actual acronym correct. The acronym is USUHS, but I can't remember what it stands for. And he volunteers to sort of get a very small group of experts together in town and do the sort of gleaming of some of the latest stuff, and even from medical journals where he can put this into, as we said, very late, because he said there's new stuff out there that doesn't even get out onto websites, but it's being published in peer-reviewed medical journals, or biomedical. So that I think is something that we could probably take advantage of and let them coordinate within this group how they best want to work, and then provide what kind of information and even how frequently. So I would allow them that flexibility to come up with their kind of process or plan. And if you are all okay with this.
No, go ahead, Hans.
Okay, this is Hans. As you said, Kaki, the reality is that we're swamped in information. And I think what's really important, if you want to proceed with that, with a subset of people who would help us to identify the important points of the news in that day, I think it's really important you stay very basic and very simple to make the message as clear and concise as possible, whatever that message is, because I think one of the problems is that there are too many sources of information, and the only that many really valid ones, so the sources, and I think they've been very clear about what needs to happen. And I just want to make sure we don't sort of mix that we change the message from what NIH and CDC are saying.
No, and these are the things that he's working at NIH, other federal medical institutions, agencies. And I agree, keeping the message very simple and clear, but I want to also clarify that the expectation wouldn't be that they'd be doing this every day.
I can't see anything.
Pardon me? What? Sorry, somebody say something.
It's coming up.
And somebody else, I think.
Hold on.
It means being mute, I guess.
What's the matter?
There's-
Somebody...
There's no presentation. It's just the voice call. So the mayor was talking and council members are weighing in. So if all the residents can just hold mute.
Oh,
Somebody join. Okay.
do they not see the agenda? Okay, I should say this, for everybody's benefit, the council members town manager Andrea and I are having a discussion under new business. After that discussion, we have a time for questions from residents before we adjourn. So if you can all hold your questions or comments towards the end, we'll finish our discussion, and then we'll unmute you, because right now you are muted, if you can hear me. All right, so I was trying to make a clarification, Hans, so that everyone understands that this would not be a daily, kind of update. This might be whatever they think, maybe, if it's every 2 weeks.
Good.
Once a month. And it would be only, very simple, a few nuggets. Like you said, we don't want information overload, but it might be, so we'll see what they do. I mean, I don't think, if you all want to look at it before it gets posted, we can work that too. We can do that. Want to have that happen as well? Do that happen.
I think that couldn't hurt.
First?
Kathleen, I just have something where.
We're gonna, find in the beginning.
It would be less for content, but more just for brevity. I would just make sure it's a couple of points of. I kind of envision it as there's all the news coming out through the news media from CDC and NIH and infectious diseases and everybody else that says do general things. If there's anything that should be focused on, in particular for a town like ours that maybe is different than a large city, that would be helpful if experts kind of will be able to say, these should be especially heated here.
Sorry, Stephen. We were missing a lot of what you were saying. It got kind of choppy and noisy.
Might be a poor connection, and the train went by. Sorry. What? Let me try again real quick. What I was saying is it'd probably be useful if it's just distilled down to a couple of key points that are focusing on what those experts are reading from all the incoming information about what's important for a town like ours, perhaps difference than the nation at large to focus on, because the town is a little bit unique. It's mostly just residences. So that was my point.
I'll pass that on. I think that's a very good point. Anybody else?
Yeah, so I had a question. What about liability? This is Phil.
Who is
This
the
is Phil.
Oh, Phil, you sound so different. Okay, go ahead.
So what I was wondering about, what about liability? Especially if people recommend something or the group recommends something and there's a problem. Will they? How does that work? Because
I understand what Bob Friedman was suggesting is that they were going out to, they could be going out to peer-reviewed biomedical journals or medical journals. So these are already peer-reviewed, and it's not like they're going to, and so they could state the reference point if they're making if they're giving some new information that might be relevant to the town. They would actually also reference, the citation where they got it from, but understand that they're referring either to already the reputable websites, like CDC, and NIH, and FEMA, so forth, but also peer-reviewed journals, and that's quite reputable. Is that okay?
right, but what if it's in conflict with what the federal government or one of these other agencies is putting out?
Well, I can make it clear to them that
I think,
it's relevant. But go ahead.
Jackie, I would say, I think to Phil's point, I think what we need to do is if we have this advisory group, that we underscore that everything they publish has to be in step with official government policy. and pronouncements. They can't go recommending something else because that gets us into trouble, even if it's peer reviewed. I think we're just. I think the charge would be. The charge would be simply, provide additional information if you see it, but keep it really simple, bullet points, and in conformance with the official government policy about what we as individuals should be doing if we feel sick or if we've been exposed to somebody, whatever. The basic message cannot violate the government instructions. And when I say government, in this case, I mean NIH and CDC, essentially.
Sure, and I think we all agree, and certainly we don't want to send mixed signals or conflicting information. I do not think this group is going to recommend anything. I think it's more like they're going to give medical insight, maybe how the virus, maybe transferring or mutating. They may have more of the latest facts, or not even the latest. I'm sure they'll get that from, the CDC. If people are interested, because Andrea and I, we're not putting out the number of cases of infection on a daily or even weekly basis. So these are just sort of, like you said, simple, kind of newsworthy, but nothing where they're going to come out and say we recommend it. But I'll make sure they know that.
Yeah, and maybe no mixed messages. No mixed messages.
Right, and the first few times, I think it might, we'll just distribute it among all of us so that y'all get a sense and think if it's okay, if it's meeting what you thought it would meet. Okay, we'll give it a test.
Yep.
We'll give it a test run before we put it out on the internet. Okay. Everybody okay with that? I didn't hear any opinions.
Okay.
I got the liability and the mixed messaging. We got that. Anything else about that?
Just so everybody knows, around town, council has agreed, to, as far as I know, just have one voice on this whole topic. So official messages will come out from the mayor or from town manager, but kind of all be funneled that way. So kind of like what Hans and Phil were saying, we don't want to have all kinds of varied information. We have to pick and choose from what it is. We're trying to all go in one direction and be additive to information.
Thank you, Stephen. In fact, that was something I raised with Bob, that, we would still post it under GPML. So nobody's like, who is this? But I think doing a test run with the first couple or three or whatever, just to see that everybody feels comfortable with it, that would be a good idea. And I heard Jerry Lee's voice, I think.
Thank you, Kaki. I'm sorry. I was trying to do this on the WebEx, but it seems to work better with the phone.
Okay.
So I'd like to take a step back because to me, it would be easier to understand what the role of a committee or task force could or should be if we first went over what additional measures we think we should do now. So that then we could say, well, here are the unknowns, or the situation might change after today, and we could have the task force advise us on those things. But it seems to me it would be useful to go over any additional measures that, based on current guidance from the county, current guidance from the state, current guidance from CDC, we could take now, such as perhaps posting some advisory signs at Penn Place or at the parks, for example. So to me, that would be helpful. But, and just one more thing, in terms of an advisory committee, I was thinking that rather than seeking out necessarily medical advice, because, everything I've seen is that we should all listen to the CDC, and we should all listen to the state and county advice. And I just feel Garrett Park has opted in to the Montgomery County health laws, ordinances, codes, and enforcement. So it seems to me, following county advice, following state advice, following CDC advice is the best way to go. If we want to ask a task force or a committee to help us to summarize what the best and latest is on a regular basis, yes, that could be helpful because there is a lot of information out there. But in terms of like, what we really need is not necessarily medical advice, but based on what all those official entities are advising, what are some practical applications that are specific to the town of Garrett Park and our public facilities and, you know, the layout of our town. So to me, rather than thinking about this as sort of a high-level peer-reviewed journal kind of medical advice thing, which I agree might have some liability issues tied to it, to me it's more about the practical application of things like signage, building closures, things like that.
All right, Jerry Lee, yeah, I'm going to have to interrupt on that because I don't want everybody, you know, staying on the call too long. But, yeah, we're going to go down all those things because we've been collecting a lot of, you know, questions and, you know, requests by residents and so forth. So we're actually going to go down that list. I just thought the timing was which, you know, how to find information that if we have, and believe me, this is not an official task group. This is a volunteer group who thinks that they might be able to contribute. So, as I mentioned already, if they see something interesting or relevant about the disease in a peer-reviewed journal, whether it's medical or biomedical research or psychological or mental health, you know, they may want to include it. But again, I think, you know, we'll be able to, it'll be so brief, but that's not the only thing that they do. They could do what I also said is that they could scan all these reputable websites like CDC and NIH and so forth, and even, you know, the state and the county and at the federal level of what is happening that we don't really have time to, you know, review and collect and you know, decipher and simplify and then you know, disseminate. So, you know, they could play that role there where they're kind of helping, like, but again, as somebody else mentioned, this would be only a few little things. This is not, they're not going to have a whole page of stuff. It's just a few things. It's their way of wanting to help. And it's a volunteer group. I mean, they may decide that there isn't anything really more that they can do. We want to just give them an opportunity, like we have some other things that we're going to talk about. Some of you already know about the support group. So I'm going to just let Andrea go on down, unless we can come back to this later if you like, but let's just go on through some of the other things so you all know we are considering all this stuff, and we certainly want the council members involved here. Go ahead.
Okay. Next item up is related to elections. So just know that we're going to have to do some things differently this year than we've done in years past. The three things to be thinking about are the nomination process, the candidate forum, and election day. So the first one up would be nominations. In our code, we give council the authority to decide the manner, time, and place for the nominations to be held. So I've been working on that and emailing individual council members. Thank you for your feedback. That information will be shared with residents either today or Monday on how that process will work. As far as the candidate forum, that still needs to be decided. I've been in discussions with Alicia, the Citizens Association, and they have some good ideas. So I'm working on that with them. For actual election day and how that will work, I've been in discussions with our chief election judge in town and with our contract town attorney. That's still to be decided. There's a lot to consider there. We don't have a perfect option available to us. So I'm still sort of finding out what the best course of action is there. But as I have more information on that, I will share that with council and then with residents. Any questions related to elections?
No,
did I understand?
not a question, Andrea. Not a question, Andrea, but a suggestion. You said you've been talking to Louise, and Louise I don't think she's been the election judge before, so she's new at this as well.
Yeah.
And the person who had a lot of.
She has. She was the election judge last year.
Okay.
Last year.
Okay. Let me just throw out Suzanne Grafsheim, who was largely responsible for running it for quite a few years, and also who was very instrumental in helping to revise the code, might be a good source. That's all.
Okay, thank you. We'll take that under consideration.
Okay.
Yeah, just a suggestion.
Yeah. Great.
Go
ahead.
This is Phil. So have we made a decision? For instance, I know I had sent some comments back about nominations and seconds and so on and so forth, but have we, as a council, made a decision, or what's happened there?
I've received responses from council members, and this is just something that you're all going to have to kind of work with me, that if you sent me your comments, I'm incorporating them best I can where I feel like we have consensus on certain issues. There are certain things that just from an administration perspective too are sort of not practical. So, things that we've done in the past, for example, related to petitions, are not going to be advised this year. It's in the charter, so somebody could still do it, but it really, having in-person contacts doesn't make any sense. And if someone was going to email 10, have somebody email me their 10 supporters, that gets logistically impossible really quickly when things are already pretty difficult right now. So I'm using my best judgment based on your feedback and a way to make this process fair, and having spoken with the chief election judge and with the Citizens Association, just to have some transparency in the matter as well.
Andrea, this is Jerry Lee. I'm sorry if I missed it, but did you say how we would actually conduct the election, or you haven't yet gotten that far? Because May, or the first week of May, is certainly within a parameter of time that we might still be in somewhat close to the same situation.
It's legally complicated. I don't want to get into it right now because we'll be on the phone for another hour and a half just on that issue. But just know that I'm working on it behind the scenes, that I'm talking to our attorney, and that the guidance changes as things change at the state level as well. So it's a moving target right now. And again, there's not going to be a perfect option available to us, but we'll have to make some decisions and be comfortable with what we decide.
Okay, thank you.
Is the process for doing the nomination, per our code, you have the ability to council has the ability to decide the manner, time, and place of the nominations to be held. Do you want to vote right now on what was emailed to you? What was emailed to you individually is largely the plan that I was going to go with a couple small exceptions and where people had suggestions. For example, one suggestion was that as nominations are confirmed, the nominees could be listed on the town website so that everybody's aware who's been nominated. So I can run through all this. If that's something you want to vote on, or if people can tell me if you feel comfortable knowing that it's largely the same as what you were emailed.
This is Phil. Did I understand that the charter says that it talks about the 10-person petition?
Yeah, that's why it would still be an option available, but it would be highly discouraged this year.
Right. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean door to door, but you could still put the onus on the person to basically collect and send electronically a single document that has all those petitions, has all those people on it.
I don't think it's a good idea for us to recommend that our residents get signatures from other residents, especially when there's another option available where they could just email the nomination.
They don't. Right. They don't have to, but they could collect the emails and send them. They wouldn't need to be going door to door or anything to that effect.
They can, but it's not necessary, right?
Well, I don't like the it's not necessary, I guess, is where I'm getting hung up, because there's no second, and I know you saw my comments on it already, but I'm just putting it out for everybody else. There was no second to the nomination, and, you know, basically what we're saying is you can nominate yourself and that's it. And then
right, and that's our code and our charter does not require a second. It's been a practice, but it's not a requirement.
Okay.
Are we really expecting an unusual, compared to the past, number of nominees this year? And if no, I'm wondering, is it an undue burden? And please feel free to just say yes. If it definitely seems like one, to have maybe a window of time where if the position is a concern to some or all of the council, maybe there's a window of time, like a certain day, 10 people can call the town office and say, I'd like to sign the position for this person. And then once you get 10, then they're good.
I don't think that that's practical right now. I think else will be in the office at that time.
Can I ask a question? Really this is Andrea. This is Dan. If the concern about signatures is door to door, like, I don't really think anybody does that anyways, right? Like, anybody could like get a DocuSign, send it to 10 people for digital signature. It wouldn't burden the town office. Like, I'm just saying, personally, I don't mind whether we get to 10 signatures or not, but if you want to do that, there's a really easy digital way to do that wouldn't burden the town office at all. The town office would just be the last to receive a digital document that 10 people have already signed, and it would be incumbent on the person trying to be nominated to set up the DocuSign. And frankly, if you're not capable of doing that, you're not really capable of serving the town. So I do think there's an easy digital solution if you wanted that. I also think if we're going to skip the nomination part, that's fine with me too, but I just wanted to tee up the digital solutions easy.
This is Jerry Lee.
Sorry, Jerry Lee, I was going to just say, I think, you know, a 10 signature approach is what you do for a typical write-in nomination, but in this instance, you know, it would be, I hear what Andrea is saying, a second is not necessary, but really, it's all it is just asking one more person. You can either nominate yourself, right, and then you can just ask one more person to send in an email, to send themselves, you know, to send an email that just says I second it, and that, you know, that's probably all we need.
It is another email that would need to be confirmed, though, so it does effectively double the workload for Elizabeth and I.
Sure.
We would have to confirm with the second.
So if you're saying no second, then you don't have to confirm anything.
You're just confirming with the person nominating themselves, or the person being nominated. A second is an additional confirmation, right?
You can't take face value.
Or item to file, or item to keep track of. I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible, just understanding that there's a possibility we'll all be shelter in place at some point, and so what's the most efficient way of dealing with it's the least burden for the people that are wanting to run.
Andrea, this is Jerry Lee. Given that this format, the meeting we're holding right now, seems to be relatively successful, why not just hold a nominating meeting in this format and get the first flush of nominations that way, and then allow the process you're describing as the backup that would have otherwise been done if, you know, when in the past people did it with a petition, but they could do the email format that you're proposing, because this seems to be working pretty well, and that would actually be less burdensome for you if we just did the meeting, possibly, maybe not. Maybe setting up this meeting was a lot of burden, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that when we were talking about, I'm trying to remember when we talked with Elise and we talked with Alicia and what some of our kind of pros and cons were on doing it maybe via teleconference. You know, certainly we could. You know, I don't know.
You'd be asking
She could ask people to say that they plan to speak. Like if somebody plans to nominate a different person, they could say ahead of time, then you would know, at least to have the floor open.
Andrew is saying, guys, there's just, I understand the transparency, and if that's where you certainly are all focused, it's just also incredibly, stuff that we're handling here is a lot. And every time there's another nuance to do some extra work, it adds to Andrea's. It's challenging when I can't move forward with things, just to be blunt. So I'd just like to make a decision with this today so that I can get the word out to residents. So if the consensus of the council is to want to do a nomination meeting, then that's, what we'll do, and we'll figure that out in the town office. If people feel really strongly about having a second or 10 signatures, then if there's consensus there, then that's what we'll do, and we'll figure it out. But I just want everyone to understand the trade-off from time.
Andrea, given the discussion, what would be your professional recommendation?
I mean, my recommendation is to do basically what I had emailed, so that residents that wanted to run could either send an email or they can mail in their nomination to the town office. We'll date, print, keep records of those nominations. We'll contact the nominees, confirm that they want to be on the ballot. As those nominations are confirmed, we would put them on the website. They would fill out a financial disclosure form. That would sort of be that.
I'm fine with your approach.
Andrea?
Yes.
This is Hans. The recommended procedure that you have that you asked for comments back on, was Louise comfortable with that?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. In that case, if she has to make it, she at the end has to execute it. So I think if she's comfortable, that's important to me.
Yeah, I don't know how much she would be executing on this. I mean, for her, it comes into play more on election day, But I wanted to be inclusive as we were pulling this process together, just understanding that she's part of the process and understanding that in the past, citizens were part of the process. That's why I talked to us local.
So if I understand correctly, we'll have a multi-day open nomination where people can nominate themselves, which would be different from a single meeting, and then having to have petitions for anybody after that meeting.
That's right. They can nominate themselves or other people. And it'd be between, whether it's today or Monday and April 13th.
So we're changing the process from what it was, where a single meeting and then requiring petitions thereafter, to basically being an open forum where single people can nominate themselves, no petitions are needed, no seconds are needed.
Right.
And that doesn't run afoul of the charter, or the charter just says you can use you can nominate.
The code is what speaks to it, and it gives the council the ability to decide the manner, time, and place for the nominations to be held.
Where was the 10 part? You said something.
Do a teleconference. Do it for a conference call. It gets a little hard now, I guess, for scheduling, since when the nominations meeting would have been held has been canceled already, and knowing that all of this has to be wrapped up by April 13th. I'm thinking for other people's schedules, not for mine, right? But wanting to make sure that it's a time when candidates would all be available, or a lot of them would be.
I mean, we won't run afoul of something because you said it's all right. We can pick and choose the way in which we do the nominations. But what was the thing about the you said something about, though, there was a part about the 10-person signature. Was that a requirement, or how was that laid out in the document?
It's not a requirement, but it'd still be an option available to people that we would just discourage. Because you know, it's in the, I can't remember if it's the charter or the code, but it's in, you know, it's in there. So.
And we've always had that.
Andrea, this is Jerry Lee. As long as you checked with the town attorney, I concur with your recommended approach.
Yeah, I'm good with it, Andrea. Sounds like you've got a majority. There you go.
And if the town attorney has, this is Hans, if the town attorney has some significant suggestions to make a difference, if you could just send us an email outlining those with a, you know, saying, please get back to me by the end of the day or something like that.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Then I'm fine with it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so it'd be moving forward with an alternate way to handle candidate nominations for this year. Residents can nominate themselves or others through email or through mail. And then the town office will keep records and will confirm.
We keep that open for the day?
And that would be open until April 13th.
Oh, you're not going to do a one-day?
No, it'll be open until April 13th.
But then where does the signature write-in come in?
There'd be no 10
Oh,
signature
there won't
write-in
be.
under this.
Okay, there's no 10 signature write-in.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody else got it? Okay. Good.
Just a question.
Okay.
If people say they nominate themselves tomorrow, or a friend nominates them, does that go on the town website immediately, or would that wait until they all go up on the 13th?
No, I think we'll put them up as we're collecting them. That was the suggestion, was to put them up, you know, as kind of as practical as possible as when we receive them.
That makes sense.
That's a nice idea, yeah. Make sure everybody knows what's going on.
Good point, Stephen.
Yeah, as soon as we confirm, right. Okay, the next item I wanted to talk about was related to parks. So I know there's been a lot of discussion and concern from residents about some of the parks being open. So I want to talk about this in two different parts. One would be town parks and one would be county parks. So starting first with town parks, where we have control over what happens there, would be Cambria Park and the dog park. I guess my question to council is if you're comfortable with us closing the park, or if you want to be consistent with what Montgomery County Parks is doing, which is not closing the parks, but they are going to go around and place signage with guidance for residents related to the parks. And that guidance is some of what has gone around on GPML and on the town website.
It's the same guidance. I think we've been emailing around amongst council and manager and mayor as well. So.
Yeah, and maybe I'll actually start. Sorry, I'm going to start with a little more information on county parks and then come back to town parks. When I talked to the county parks folks today, they basically said that the town perspective, we can't close either Wells Park or Garrett Waverly Park, and they also asked us to please not put up signage. They had a press conference today, and they have a rush order on signage that they're going to get up ASAP. The other piece that's relevant to this is that if there are folks that are at parks that are in violation of what either county parks has recommended or what the governor has prohibited, so for example, groups of 10 or more that are congregated closely, folks can call the Parks Police, Montgomery County Parks Police, and they'll enforce it. And that phone number is 301-949-8010, and I'll have that in a minute as well, the phone number for that. So I wanted to give you that information as to kind of tee up on what council would like to do about town parks with Cambria Park and the dog park. We can close those.
Have you seen a copy of what the count? Andrea, this is Hans. Have you seen a copy of what the county proposes to have printed up and mount on their park equipment? And if so, are you comfortable?
But it was read to me. The language was read to me, and it was actually the exact same language from their website that I had put on what would have gone up if we were putting up signs. So.
Does it have the makings of something that we could use and would make us happy with the proper use of this equipment in this period?
Yeah, I mean,
Good.
what they're going to tell people, what's going to be on their sign is that folks shouldn't be gathering in groups of more than 10 or get closer than 6 feet from other people, that they shouldn't be touching surfaces that are likely to be touched by other people. They should refrain from using playground equipment, and they should not participate in activities involving physical contact or sharing of equipment.
What about wiping down after they're done with their play?
Yeah, I don't remember if that was on the website. I don't remember if that was going to be on their notice or not.
Because in Cambria Park with all the kids apparatus, they're only going to be touching surfaces that others will be touching, but
yeah,
we even strongly encourage them to have some wipes or something that they wipe up after they leave. We know that's been in,
yeah. I think that's, I think we have both options available to us.
Or we close them. That's
right.
The other part of your question.
Yep.
Right?
I think we either close them or we put up the guidance consistent with the county.
Andrea, this is Jerry Lee. Did you by any chance ask when you talked to them about the enforcement where people could call and the Parks Department would come? I assume that officially only applies to Wells Park and Garrett Waverly. I suppose it's not an option that we could also call them if the same thing happened at a town park, or because they don't have jurisdiction there?
I'm on the phone.
Yeah, that would be my assumption as well.
Keep in mind that the town owns.
There is the state law about the gathering of 10 people. Has the state published anything about how that is being enforced, the gathering of 10 or more people?
On one of Governor Hogan's press conferences, he was very strongly wording basically that this is prohibited and that if people see that and it is called in, that it will be enforced. So
I know that in places in New York, people are, if they see it, others are saying, hey, you're really violating, this directive by having more than 10 people. You need to really break up. People are doing some self-policing, in other words. You can imagine how swamped this might get if you're just relying on park police officer. So your question might go even further here, Hans or Jerry Lee, is, are we comfortable, if people are self-policing? Because we already know that's kind of happening, actually. I've heard about some accounts already in town.
Well, this is Jerry Lee again. I think just from a discussion standpoint, as a general principle, since we have a mix of county and town parks in town, I think it would be less confusing for people if we just follow the county guidelines, the Montgomery County Parks guidelines for all of our parks, so that we can have the same policy, cover all. Obviously, the enforcement would not be an option, but we could still, once the county posts their advisory notices, we could post the same kind of advisories on the town-only parks. So that would certainly be an option to go with. I just like the simplicity of sticking to the county enforcement because they are staying very much abreast of state guidance and CDC guidance. So once they make any changes to county policy, we can just follow it. And it makes it very simple, and you don't have to reconsult us.
That's great. I think that's what Andrea is saying, is that what I want to get clarification from you all is, then, do you not want the town office to post these notices until the county posts theirs? Or do you want us to be more proactive, as Andrea already had said, same instruction that she has already printed up is right now what we know to be the same instruction that the county was going to be using.
This is Phil. I'd be fine with doing that, with going with what we have right now, and then if there's some change in it, that we go ahead and make the change once we find out exactly what the county has posted.
Right.
I would agree with Phil.
I agree with that as well.
Are you taking comments from interested residents?
Sorry, who's that?
This is Chris Keller. I would just ask you to bear in mind that Garrett Waverly is about 1/3 owned by the town, so it's a mixed ownership.
I'm sorry, Chris, we're going to take comments and questions at the end. Hold that.
Okay. Fair enough.
Because everybody's supposed to be muted. All right.
All right. I'll self-mute. Good luck.
Well, I think Chris just made the point to why it would be good to harmonize both county and town parks as far as regs go.
Agreed.
I think we're all trying to do. All right. Let's see. Post office. So, a lot of good advice about that. You know that it's getting cleaned regularly, but there's more that maybe we can do. But I want to let you all know, if we're setting out hand sanitizer, which of course we can't get right now, or wipes, or paper towels, a lot of this we anticipate, if it's not chained down, it would get stolen. We already know that the toilet paper is being taken. Bakery tissues was raised as a possibility. We could look into that. I think one of a concern that Andrea and I had is this going to become a litter problem? Where these little papers, they might be a 6x6, they could be a 10x6, but if people drop them around, we're going to certainly have to encourage, not to say that we can't have, some kind of a disposal, can right near the door, but you never know how this goes. It's just letting you know that, it can create some other, problems, and as well as things could get stolen. So we'd like to hear your thoughts on that. We had propped open the post office door today. That was, it was great weather. That was an easy fix. But I think we're also looking into the cost of an automatic door opener, and I think it's about $3,000. Understanding that it would still require somebody to push a button. So what are your thoughts about that?
Yep, it probably makes sense to have sorry, this is Dan. It probably makes sense to have an ADA door opener on that door anyways. $3,000 sounds about the price I would expect for that. And what's nice about those ADA buttons is they're accessible to everybody. And if you want to, if you're able to press them with your knee, you can press them with your knee or your elbow. And really, it's probably a sensible place for that anyways. That's my 2 cents.
I was going to say the same.
Makes sense. We could also, it doesn't sound very social, and maybe that's the right message for this time, is encourage people not to go to the post office every day.
Well, we're going to get to that in a minute.
Twice a week. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in a minute. That's a good point, though. But yeah, we're going to talk about that.
I have a question on the cost. estimate, was that just for materials or does that include labor and installation?
Here. I don't remember off the top of my head, but
It sounds like a labor and install price, because if it's the existing
Yeah.
door, that would be kind of in that expectation.
George and I just chatting. This isn't an estimate from a company yet, and George and I thought, or what George thought was perhaps $3,000 with electrical work and wall patching. So we can, we'll move forward with getting a formal estimate from a company.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I just say, in the interim, can we just prop the door open for at least a few hours a day?
Yeah, that's what we did today, Phil.
No, I'm just saying continue it.
Yeah, I think you're right. As it gets warmer, it gets a little challenging because it creates condensation challenges down there, which is why we, normally try to encourage people to leave it closed. But for short term,
until we get this door opener, that's probably the best we can do. But point taken, we have humidity issues we have to, control for the archives, so. Once we get the door opener, that we'll keep it closed, and then we have the button.
That's helpful. That's helpful. Okay.
Yeah. This is Hans. This is Hans. One quick thought is, if you look at the price of a door opener, whether it's push activated, you might as well look at one that is sensor activated, so it sees you coming in and opens automatically. So it eliminates the need to having to contort yourself to push the out button or the in button with anything but your hand.
Yeah, we actually have been thinking of that. And, we can explore it. I don't know how much more effort that is. If it, if it has to be linked somehow to our server, or, I don't know. We'll look into that. But that was a thought we had as well.
That's usually not something you see on a wooden door like that anyway, though. It's usually like a glass door, like an airport door, or a store door. So it would be like a much different thing.
All right. If we can, go on to the next. There's a little piece here that one of you asked about with mail, and that might be where we can kind of jump over and just kind of talk about what can the residents do, or what can we be doing more specifically with residents. And I think you all are aware that Elizabeth, the administrative assistant, that she has started to get a group together, and then it's going to be incumbent upon this group in town, the volunteers, to kind of come up with things. But that this group will be the support group to assist our elders, our senior population. Many of them right now, as we're finding over these last few days, they are already self-isolating, self-quarantining, sheltering in place, and they don't want to come out. So they're going to be looking at that. I inquired with the post office mistress about how we'd be able to get the mail to them, because I've already had one call today about that. And that's something that maybe this support group can look more into doing. We know there's some compliance issues with the Postal Service, but if we had everybody's key, then it's not an issue. The Postal Service won't mind. But if this list gets long and the days go on and more people shelter, you could be looking at 50 people or 100 people, and managing those keys would really be, impractical. So what may be able to be done, and the postmistress was going to check with the U.S.
postal headquarters is whether or not we can establish a dynamic list of residents, their post office box numbers, their phone numbers, and have some kind of written approval by email or something that we'd be able to demonstrate that they are on board with this. Also, that the postmistress said that she would also call them to confirm that this is in fact what they want to do. This is all just thoughts right now. There's nothing established, but it also could be where, so you collect the mail and understand that some of the packages can be extremely heavy, so that's a logistical thing to consider. But you put it in a bag, and you place that bag at the doorstep of the senior residence. So that's kind of where things are, we're kind of looking at that, and certainly welcome your thoughts. And I don't even know how practical this is. We could also do, I'm sorry, I'm sort of jumping here, but it wouldn't have to be something done every day. It could be maybe a collection of mail once a week for individuals, that kind of thing. I just packed up a huge bag of mail for one resident. I don't know how long it had been sitting there, but those are the things we're going to run into. And who would make the delivery unless it's the support group or the support group reaches out to other residents? So would love to have your thoughts on that. What you think? This is happening now already. I mean, we're getting the calls.
This is Dan. I mean, it seems really. I think I'm thrilled that you brought up the topic. It seems really important. If someone is home alone, and which can also mean lonely, getting your mail can be really important. And so I would imagine we've got more volunteers than we need because, frankly, most folks are at home anyways. So I think if whatever system you determine with key box management, I actually think that with a key box, you probably could manage it, kind of like a valet key box. And if folks want to turn their key over and have it managed that way, and then the volunteers have access to that key box, and we just build a sort of system like that and then get volunteers to do it. But I think it sounds really important. So I don't have the exact solution in my head, but my hunch is there's plenty of hands to help.
That's a great idea about something like a valet box. The postmistress suggested, where we could put a little sticky, round sticky with the post office box number on the key. But where to put them, you've just given us a great idea on that. But that's a great suggestion. Anybody else? And I certainly will. Not me, but this senior support group that is being formed, the volunteer support, certainly can look at ways of how you get this the mail delivered and stuff. But these are good ideas. If you have any other ideas, you don't have them on your mind right now, mail them in.
Okay. It sounded like Dan's idea would be really good for sort of some ebb and flow with the groups of volunteers. It wouldn't have to necessarily be one person dedicated to one other family. It might be that there's 20 volunteers and 60 people sign up for this need. The Valley box sounds pretty good. I'm just wondering if there are those heavy packages. Is that the kind of thing maybe consider, like the town maintenance truck could be used, like throw them in the pickup truck, and then whoever's volunteering that day just really quickly drop off the 8 or 10, like if their care packages coming or whatnot, deliver those to those houses. So just throwing that out there.
You raise a good point about that, because the postmistress talked to me about that. I would like to think, and there are so many people in town looking for ways to help, that maybe, we used to have a list of, I think we still do, volunteer drivers that used to be in the Bugle. Can ask Elizabeth if that list is still active. But with the volunteer drivers, and so maybe some we could put this is a support group. They could get together where they can get some people who might have the ability physically to lift boxes and carry them, as well as the means of a vehicle to deliver them. So that's something certainly we can look at. I wouldn't burden the town maintenance staff any more than we already are.
Yeah.
Helping.
You brought up an important point that would have to be added too, is like getting the package in the door, like dropping it outside on a step or two down is one thing, but if you're over 80 and you can't lift a 30-pound box that your family sent, probably it's just some things to think through for that committee.
One example that Tiffany mentioned to me was just that, Stephen. The box was so heavy, and it was an older person picking it up and wouldn't be able to pick it up. So the person opened the box, and these were big jugs of water. So she took one jug out at a time. But yeah, I don't know the frequency of the heavy boxes, but I think there's ways we can figure that out. She also
this is Jerry Lee.
One second. Tiffany also reminded me that everybody is supposed to have two keys, two post office box keys. So, hopefully, I worry that, we could lose a key, but, and it would be their only key. But I just wanted you to be aware of that they're supposed to that we're all supposed to have at least two keys. Go ahead, Jerry Lee.
I think this is wonderful. I want to say that, and I think it's great that we have so many volunteers who want to help, and I'm sure there will be more as word gets out. I hate to be the one to raise the potential of a liability issue here, but with people touching the mail, and then even if they're picking it up and putting it in a bag, has the group talked through like some protocols of like glove wearing or anything like that for the volunteers, that they would provide them guidelines?
Right. No, I talked with the postmistress about that and the gloves. So, these are things that we'll have to make sure that the support group is aware of. I'm sure they're talking about it, but thanks, Jerry Lee, because I did mention this to the postmistress about, we're all going to have to start wearing gloves if we're making these deliveries. Yeah.
The USPS has guidance on their website, too, about handling mail right now. So that might be another thing that the folks that are working on that would want to be aware of that and aware as updates happen there.
Okay, thank you. And I think it's just good both for me and for others listening. The neighbor, is this under the Neighbors Helping Neighbors committee umbrella?
No, this is I think it was Karen Thiel who stepped up to say she'd like to.
There were a few people that reached out. At the
Oh yeah, there were.
Which was really nice.
But I think Karen might be the one that's going to sort of lead it. But
great.
It's a bunch of volunteers, and I don't have the specifics, and I think it's just being formed. I think Elizabeth sent out a list to the group to think about all the kind of things, the protocol stuff we're talking about right now, and I saw, like a couple pages, so it seems pretty comprehensive. It just went out, so I don't know who was all on this group. There's been a bunch of people who emailed the town asking if they can, play a part in this.
Okay, so I just really wanted to get clarification. Is it a fully volunteer effort, or is it a sponsored town group?
No, none of this is sponsored by the town. This is volunteers looking to do things, so they're joining force,
Elizabeth's helping sort of bring them together because they reach out to Elizabeth, right? But
and she has the names or the phone numbers, because they're going to have to start. They might be looking at calling calling the seniors on some regular basis. I don't know how often, but so there's that kind of.
Okay, so
she's just giving that
so the
information.
town is providing some communication support. But it's a volunteer group. I just want to make sure I understood how it was organized. Thank you.
Yep. Just a volunteer group. And I'm sure there could be other volunteer groups. I think I mentioned to somebody, some resident, they could form, as long as they stay 6 feet apart and there's not more than 10 at a time, they could take whatever Clorox wipes they may have and go and wipe down playground equipment for the time being or something. I mean, there's things that people can do to help out, and it isn't going to be, the town that has to be overseeing this. I mean, we all have to be a little more proactive as well as take individual responsibility. So, we don't want to be the police state here in this office. I'm sure you guys don't want to either.
We don't have a police officer, so we can't really do that.
Not yet. Closest thing is a parking enforcement officer. Another question? There. Yeah. Before we get off to the residents, is there anything else the council members want to raise? Any points? Anything new about this?
Khaki, this is Jerry Lee. Khaki? I have 2 items. One is I'd like to hear an update on the how the COVID-19 situation is affecting the sidewalk project. And then also, I do think we should discuss communication protocols during the remainder of the emergency.
Okay, I can tackle the first one. The second one is a little too vague, but we'll get to that in a minute. That pandemic is obviously affecting everybody in all work areas. So the Patriot, who is the prime contractor, is taking this day by day, and this is why they did not excavate this week. They were supposed to, but they have some people who were sick, not infected, just sick, like allergy sick, and they didn't want to excavate for fear that maybe, there would be some directive by the state or county shut down. This would affect like concrete plants, so they didn't want to leave residents without access to their driveways. So they were going to wait. So right now we're on schedule to start excavation on Monday, as long as nothing changes over the weekend. So that's about as far as I can say. They're taking it day by day, and they're trying not to inconvenience residents. So that's what I can tell you about the effort. Yeah. And what was the second question? For communication.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that update. I appreciate it. On the second one, we don't have to sort through it right here online, but I would just like to request that Andrea and the team there in the town office work with us via email to establish a texting phone tree for emergency purposes, to make sure that if something happens that you and she need to meet us, either call another emergency meeting or get some advice on short turnaround. That you know how to reach us, and we know which numbers to expect are an emergency call. So just to make sure that we're all prepared for any further emergencies, or if we get some sort of order or notice from the county or the state that we need to understand right away. That's all.
I being familiar with that. I guess we could do or you, really, if you wanted to look for some fairly applicable guidance from, elsewhere to provide for protocol. You could research and see what might be a workable protocol. I mean, we only have,
Sure,
5.
I'll be happy to give you Khaki, I'm more than happy to give a sample. I can give you a sample, no problem.
Great. That would shortcut a lot of things. We already have basically, we have the phone numbers. There's only 6 people, but then it goes further. It's like, what do we do after that? How do we notify town residents? So it's not just notifying, council, mayor, and keeping asking us. It's what do we do after that? And that's where, I think Phil and I, when we were at MML last year, we certainly saw some very relevant, excellent equipment, tele equipment that would have gotten to help with this. But we can discuss that another time. But Phil, you know what I'm referring to, right?
Yep, I certainly do.
I think it was the AI phone, something like AI phone. It sounds funny.
Yeah, I'm fine with sticking to the old school of our current cell phones. I just wanted to make sure we all had the numbers and procedures. I'll be happy to provide a sample. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate, it goes further than just town council and mayor and Andrea. It's how do we then take this emergency information and get it out to residents if they're not getting to their emails quickly. So that's a whole other challenge. Okay.
Agreed. Yeah, and I'll incorporate that into the samples I pull.
Okay. Hey, Phil, could I ask a favor?
What's that?
Could you look into that telephone
thing from last?
type service? Yeah, from last year. Just go back and look at it. I think I still might have some information, but just look at it and see if it could work. Of course, we don't know if the price is over our heads or what, but see if anything might.
Sure.
We've long talked about having some kind of an emergency system for the whole town. So, go ahead. What else? Is that it? Anybody else? Any other council member want to say anything?
We could just going back super quick to the parks thing. I think it was pointed out that Garrett Waverly Park, where the tennis courts are, that's co-owned by MNC PPC and by the town. So just for clarification, the tennis courts are on MMPPC, but I think the town own 3 properties, including Penn Place, and then the second one is basically the driveway. The third one is part of that field that's in there, and it slices through the basketball court. So the basketball court and that grassy area that are close to the park, that's county owned. That's kind of what that's about. But,
I know that Andrea made that point to the parks. Yeah. So is there a suggestion in there, Stephen, to?
Well, it sounds like they're going to put a sign out in front of their park, so we don't necessarily need to put one in our end. But just thinking about it now, probably wouldn't hurt to put one on the town side of the, if they're not opposed to it, put one on the town side of that at Porcupine Woods. So.
I think one thing that might be nice is if flip that maybe, if there's not one over there that they put over there already.
Yeah, so say they put one out at the street corner, like if they're not opposed to it, maybe it doesn't hurt to put one on the post office side, kind of where the 4th of July grill goes.
I don't know if folks putting up the signs are going to be aware of like our contract agreement. You know what I mean? I think they're just.
I doubt it. Yeah. They'll be told to put a sign at that park. So.
Yep.
Okay, 6:24. Do we have a limited time on this call? We have it for 2 hours. Okay, so we have, we're well over, aren't we? Okay. All right, so if council members don't have any other questions, I'd like to go ahead and have us open this meeting up for questions or comments from residents.
I've unmuted all residents. Feel free to mute yourself again.
And we're going to have to be really patient here and very civil and try to work out a way to just one at a time. So I don't particularly know how easy this will be done. Andrea, is there a list that you have over there?
Sort of. I can
kind of go down and call out
their names and some folks don't. So,
all right. Well, okay. We're going to start. If you all don't mind, we'll start with somebody, just Question, is there a hand? Do they raise a hand over there at all? Okay. If this gets really crazy, somehow we're going to have to take a step back and, rethink how we can do this, which would, alleviate any.
There is a chat box if that helps, if people want to say they have a question. So I think Ed put something in there already.
Okay. I thought I saw somebody raise their hand. Was that you, Ed?
No.
David.
Okay, I tell you what. Why don't we look at their chat question?
So this says the Office of Montgomery County Councilmember Andrew Friedson is going to request that Garrett Park be permitted to post its own signs. I guess I'd like a little more information on that.
I can provide information on that. This is David Rubenstein, and I can provide information on that. I was advised, thank you. First, I'd like to thank the town council and the mayor and Andrea for all your good work and for your careful attention to these issues that are obviously important to most of the town, whether they're aware of it or not. These are crucial issues, particularly I think the voting is important, of course, the elections, and also the health issues. So I will say that I heard today that the town, or the city council, not the city council, the Montgomery County Council, Montgomery County Parks Department, excuse me, said that we are not permitted to put up signage in the parks in town. So I wrote.
They asked us not to because they're posting their own signs, like very, very soon.
Right. Well, thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that. My sense is working with governments with all sorts of priorities that very soon may happen right away and very soon may not happen right away. And so what I'm both suggesting to the town council, to the management of the town, to our mayor, is that we put up the signs until Montgomery County puts up their own signs. And if our signs mimic their signs, my sense is that they wouldn't be very disappointed in that. And it would seem like a very proactive, responsible thing for our town to do, to make sure people see the signs before they allow their children to play on the equipment. So okay, I wasn't fully clear on what decisions had been made about the signage in the three types of parks: the county-owned parks, the parks that are jointly owned with the town-owned parks. So if somebody could restate for me what you've concluded, it would be helpful. But at the same point, I would like to urge that we get the signage up earlier, and if we have to take it down at another point because it's been replaced by other signs, that seems like a very reasonable thing to do.
Okay, David, just I want to seek clarification. Were you suggesting for the county-owned parks, or even part county-owned parks, that the town use our own notices where there is town right-of-way, not county right-of-way, nearby? Is that what I heard you say?
What I'm saying is that I'm urging us to have signs in any park. I'm urging that there be signs very promptly in any park in which Garrett Park residents play. And that.
All right. Okay, David. We have signs made, and we were going to put them out either tonight or tomorrow morning for Cambria and the dog park. I do hear what you're saying about the county parks, and, I want to respect what Andrea's research and her phone conversations have been with the county, and if they're really saying don't do it, I'd like to respect that, although I do see where maybe there's a pole or post near a park that is on town right of way, that we might be able to put one there, but we certainly can't put it right on the thing.
what would be Kathy, thank you for that. And I appreciate that you want to respect what the county Parks Department has requested. I'm not sure.
What Andrew has told us.
I couldn't hear what you said.
I want to respect what Andrea has told us.
Well,
What Andrea
okay. I appreciate that Andrea spoke with the county Parks Department. And I appreciate that the county Parks Department requested to Andrea that we not put the signs up. And I'm questioning whether in fact they don't want us to have signs up to preempt them, or they don't want to have signs up before their signs are ready, or whether they think this information is important, but they don't want the town to share the important information with parents. They want to share the information themselves. That's not clear to me. And if it, it seems to me that I don't know who logically, reasonably, calmly, compassionately would request that we not put up signs in the absence of county signs. That doesn't, I don't follow why that would happen.
It's a county park, so it's their jurisdiction, and they need to approve any signs that we would put up. And there's no point in going through the process of them approving the signs if they're already printing off signs to have posted. They had a press conference today, which was the emphasis for them to print these signs up and put them up. So this is all happening quickly. The person that I talked to at noon today, and I talked to her, maybe she called me back 3 times after that because this is all changing so fast.
I'm sorry, I'm really not following this clearly. You're saying that because they want to put up their signs at some point in the future, we shouldn't put up signs first and then take them down. Parents who take their children to play on that equipment should not be notified of this caution because at some point in the future, the Parks Department is going to put signs up?
It's a county park. It's their jurisdiction, and they would otherwise need to approve signs that we would be putting up, and there's no point in going through that process when they're posting their own signs.
I understand that they have a county process and that's their jurisdiction. My question is, if you wanted to inform parents that their children are advised not to play on the playground, would it make more sense to say that we can't advise parents of this very important health information that the county thinks is important enough to put their signs up, but we can't inform them and we can't put the signs up ahead of time? Is that what you're saying, that that's more important, that we respect the county's jurisdiction and we protect our children?
I appreciate your suggestion, but we are in a circumstance where we can't revisit every decision that's made. And if I've spoken with the Parks Department and they've told me that they're going to be up really soon, and please don't, please, Garrett Park, can you not put up your own signs right now? I'm sure they have their reasons for doing that. I'm not asking them, 25 questions about why, because I know that their plates are full as well, right? So part of it is respecting the relationship there and understanding that. I hear you. I hear you, but we also need to make decisions and be comfortable with it and move forward and go on to the next decision that needs to be made.
I would like to ask the town council, 5 people that are representing the parents and the children in this town, individually weigh in on whether they think we should respect the jurisdiction of the county or whether we should advise the parents of children in our town until we hear from them. I'm making a request that a town council member put forward some kind of formal step to go on record as to whether it's more important to protect children and the germs that they could spread, the virus that they could spread, or whether it's more important to respect the relationship and the jurisdiction of these busy people at the County Parks Department.
This is Stephen. I would suggest that the GPML website just have a very specific thing, not about COVID in general, but just about the playgrounds, that signs are coming, so everybody gets that email. And it says signs will be coming, the town's going to be putting up signs on its parks, the county's putting up signs on its parks, and what exactly that's going to say. Because I think that will get the message out virtually immediately. It's just
Steven,
one perspective.
Were you saying that would go in an email?
Yeah, I'm suggesting a GPML email, and even if it doesn't hurt if that gets forwarded to other other ways, have that go out and have it only be about this one park issue and clarify the issues about it. So it's not, the third or fourth point about COVID in general, but it's very specific about the playgrounds. It would basically be the county thing. It's been sent around before, but I think it's been in with other information.
Jerry Lee, Pat, yeah, I'd like to say I liked your idea of posting the same signs that we would put on town-owned parks on telephone poles very near in town right-of-way, posting what the town policy is, which echoes the county advice, of course, but that would then, people would see it perhaps on their way to the park. So I like that idea, and hopefully it's only a day.
Yeah, I was trying to, find the middle ground here, and, these are exceptional times, and, I respect Andrea's view, and I respect David's view, and, yeah, maybe this is something we just take one sign and put it there, not to overstep what we've committed already to the county, that we're waiting on them, but we'll have something nearby. I think it's a good compromise.
This is Hans. I think, David, hello? This is Hans. I agree with what Jerry Lee is saying. I think we have to, we're sort of on this tightrope where we have to balance along the way, respecting the Montgomery County government. It's their property. So I think the way we can get around that is a combination of posting what Stephen has suggested that we do, that we posted on the Garrett Park website, and secondarily, putting some quick signs up on the neighboring trees or telephone poles, or any kind of substantial structure, without being in the park and without violating their responsibility to run the parks.
In addition to Steve's recommendation on the website, I think that helps too. A lot of these people are reading, the GPML postings and seeing things on the website too.
I would agree.
I don't want to steal thunder, but somebody was pointing out this same issue comes up with Garrett Park Elementary, which has playground behind it. So the ball field, and I think even the driveway, the fire lane behind the school, that's county park, and the playground equipment is the school's property. So.
Right. And I reached out.
Oh, and by the way, the community center playground is owned by the town, so obviously any town signage would need to go there as well.
And I reached out to them to ask what, kind of where they're at on that, and if they're close or not, just because I don't have that information. So I'm waiting to hear back from Joanna Welch. Anybody else?
If the town council and the town government have reached a conclusion, I'd like to, if you could just restate it, it would be helpful to me. And thank you again for taking this seriously.
I believe, what was agreed upon was that we will be posting signs in our town properties, town parks, and then also on telephone poles, so that residents see those perhaps on their way to all parks, or just general information that would also be posted as the only topic of a GPML email. All right.
Andrea?
Yes.
Andrea, if I think you summarized it well. What's the likelihood of getting this? Well, what's the timing when we might be able to get this done?
I said that we were going to put the notices out either tonight or tomorrow morning. That's probably what I'm going to be doing.
Okay.
You're welcome to help
well,
me.
I would be happy to do it if you call me.
Okay.
Same here. We take an evening walk every night. Happy to post signs.
Okay, great. I can text you guys. All right. I think if there isn't any other questions, I don't see any other chat. There's just one question. Does anyone know if MCPS website? I don't know.
This is Jerry Lee. In answer to that one, I don't know about putting up signs, but I do know that some of the schools have been sending messages to their listserv discouraging kids from gathering and congregating at the school playground. We got one from Tilden Middle School up to that nature. And from the high school.
You know, I'd like to, just before we conclude this call, get everybody's thought on this, and I may be jumping out here without first being able to talk to Andrea, so everybody hearing it. But, you know, I think this has been a very useful phone call, and not knowing about how things would go with town council meetings, but whether we should be trying to touch bases more frequently on this coronavirus challenge. If you want to have a more frequent conversation about this rather than just every 4 weeks at a council meeting.
I think this goes to the same point. I think this goes to the point that Jerry Lee was making about future communications, and I think she said she volunteered to produce a document that she's familiar with, so that we can use it as guidance.
Yeah, I'm
it
not
certainly
really
makes sense to me.
Sorry, I'm not really referring to that. Our understanding, that's like for emergency contacts. This is like just a standing, regular phone, you know, town meeting or conference call meeting, either on a weekly basis or it would be a standing one to have for the time being. I'm asking if you all would like to do that or have one every 2 weeks as a standing conference call meeting on the subject of the coronavirus.
We had the bigger issue too. The April meeting will probably be a virtual anyway. It's probably not realistic that April and maybe even May that we'll have a in-person meeting at town hall.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea. Maybe once a week on Fridays at 5, like we've done with this one.
And it might get shorter and shorter.
It may be something that we should try to do weekly, and it may be a really good idea as a first task for this group of volunteers who are supposed to for who we hope can keep us apprised of what's going on with the coronavirus. Maybe have them determine whether it's worthwhile having a meeting, or recommend that we have it, and recommend the frequency with which we should do so.
I don't know about that, Hans. One very different. It's a very different. It's a very different level of involvement. And I don't even know if the group hasn't even been formed. I don't even know how many people are going to be interested in volunteering to work together on, keeping the town up to date on stuff in a once in a while time frame. I don't even know what kind of time frame they would suggest. I don't think they'll be ready next Friday. I don't think there will maybe even be known how many people forming this volunteer group. And I don't think that's really the role we want them to take, because we weren't going to ask for recommendations. You're just asking them to kind of, parse through a lot of the, the websites for the sake of not having to repeat everything we talked about just earlier. So I'm really abbreviating my answer.
This is Jerry Lee. I think there's more risk in under-communicating than over-communicating. So I like the suggestion that I think it was Phil or whoever made, that let's go ahead and stick with it once a week. And if, for right now, at least 5 o'clock on Fridays works okay for me. And we can adjust as we go along, spread them out longer if we find that we don't have as much to talk about each week. Sure. And I'll be happy to put that into our sample communication plan.
That works for me.
Yes, that was Kaki who made the suggestion. Is the other council members going to be able to do this at 5 o'clock at least for the next few weeks on Fridays?
Yeah, I was the one.
This is Dan. I think it's a good idea.
5 on Friday.
All right.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I'm fine too. I just wonder, is there any simplicity benefit of doing 7:30 on Mondays, like the same day as a council meeting, but just have it every week, or is it better to have it separate?
It's so late, and I think, you know what, Stephen? I think this 5 o'clock time, even though we're going on almost 7 now, I bet it'll get shorter and shorter.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah, it'll be a half hour less later on. Okay.
I hope so. And I'm sorry, Dan, I didn't hear your answer. Are you able to do the 5 with us?
I think it's a great idea. I'll commit to it. My business is a little crazy, so presuming I'm able to be here, I will be here.
So I think everybody said yeah. So and that'll be public meetings. So we will be posting that for the residents so that they know this will be happening on Fridays at least for the next few weeks. We'll see how it goes, but it'll be at 5 o'clock on Fridays on a similar video call. Right. Anything else? All good? All right, we'll get some of this kind of written up. We still have to adhere to the Open Meetings Act and get the minutes, so we'll have that out, okay?
Sounds good.
Thank you, everybody. Very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for your time as well as your advice and input. Okay. Everybody be safe, please.
Okay.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.